welcome to the Biblically Inspired Life. Today is another episode of Marriage Mondays. So again, Baruch is with me, and we're going to discuss part 2 of the role of wives in a marriage. So as you can guess, previously there was a part 1, and before that there were 2 parts concerning the role of husbands in a marriage. So let's get started. The first aspect I want to talk about is attitude. We read in the Bible several different passages of scripture dealing with women or wives and their attitudes. And recently, I can give you a great example of what happens when we don't have the right attitude. Baruch and I like to go out for walks together, and he suggested that we go for a walk in the desert. Well, that is not my favorite thing to do with all of the deep sand and getting in my shoes, and so I just don't like it, but he does. So instead of telling him, no, I don't want to do that, let's do something else, I said, okay. But then for the first half of the walk, I wasn't a very happy camper and I wasn't very cheerful. So I had a bad attitude, and it reflected negatively upon our walk, at least for the first half of the walk, and then I snapped out of it, and the second half was better. But this is just one small example of how we let our attitudes taint a situation, taint our marital relationship, and it causes a lot of problems. So in Proverbs 21, it says not to be contentious, not to be angry or brawling, and so we really need to have a check on our attitudes. Now, I want Baruch to tell me how an attitude of your wife, me, how that affects your overall view of situations.
Well, the first thing that came to my mind was, oftentimes there's a bad situation, something that you don't like, maybe we don't like together, but it's such an encouragement, it's so endearing when you take a situation that's less than desirable and you improve it. And I think that's the attitude that is very important for all people to have, but especially the wife, to take maybe a bad situation and try to make it better. And in doing so, it is going to foster intimacy and closeness between the couple. So that is something that's very, very important, because I know that you would do that, and you do that because of your love and commitment to me and your commitment to God.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to step in here and say just real quickly that the things that we're going to talk about today may require some effort, and they may not come naturally to us, but these are things that we need to work on for the overall betterment of our marriage. Now, the second thing I want to talk about are some character traits that we should work to develop. These are important for a marriage, and then they will spill over and be very important and beneficial in all relationships. But a couple of these attitudes are prudent, which prudent means that you do your behaviors with the thought of the future in mind. So if you have a more long-term view of the consequence or whatever of what you're doing.
So how your decisions today impact tomorrow, next week, next month.
And sometimes it's very long term. You always talk about how decisions that we make can sometimes impact the rest of our lives. So,
sometimes eternity.
And eternity, that's true. Some other characteristics are being self-controlled. That's from Titus 2. Being kind, having a gentle and quiet spirit, being modest, teaching the younger women to love their husbands, being busy at home, and not gossiping. Now, I did want to go back just briefly to the modesty, because within Judaism, modesty is very important, and it is taught a lot. I have a book on modesty that's about 3.5 inches thick, and it's extremely comprehensive. Now, obviously, we should dress in a modest way so that we are a good example as believers, as wives, as children of God. So we need to always dress in a modest and appropriate way. But there's other types of modesty as well. And the one that I want to just touch on has to do with our voice. And for example, a great example of this is when you see teenage girls at a mall and they're laughing and they're shouting and dancing around and so forth. And that's just not really appropriate behavior. That would be immodest behavior because it's drawing undue attention to yourself and it's just behaving in an unseemly way. So on character traits, Baruch, do you have anything that you would like to add?
Well, women today in general, in the media, in entertainment, in our society, are not behaving modestly. And one of the outcomes, and this is not to justify it, obviously, but it fosters it, and that is disrespect. So when a woman does not behave modestly in the fullest, not just dress, but as you said, the speech, behavior, when she does not convey modesty in her life, it is going to produce one of the negative byproducts of that is disrespect. And I don't think there's a time in history, at least modern history, where women have been more disrespected by society. As today we hear just the opposite, but when you look at things, you see that women are throughout the world being treated worse now than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and I think it's proportionally related to the lack of modesty in the fullest sense of that word that women by and large are displaying.
Mm-hmm. And I really want to just point out that I'm not nitpicking against just women, but I think it's important to know that God saw fit to talk about some of these traits, some of these character traits, such as gossiping and being self-controlled, because this is something that we obviously have trouble with. I know that there are many women that I've come across over the years who have had a problem with gossiping, and it turns out that they weren't being keepers of the home as they should. So they felt they had a lot of free time, whereas if we're going to talk about teamwork in the next characteristic, but if you're not dealing with the things of your home, then you're going to have free time that you're going to use in not productive ways.
And usually gossip, whoever does it, but gossip is usually drawing attention to yourself. And that's not what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to serve one another and to exalt God. So usually gossip comes from a poor self-image or an insecurity that someone has.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So the third part I wanted to speak about is teamwork. And it talks in the Bible about how in Proverbs 31, it talks about the woman and all of the different activities that she's involved with, buying and selling and clothing her family and rising early to provide for them. So she's extremely busy. And what does it say about the husband? It says the husband trusts in her. So we need to, one of the things when we are participating in our marriage as a team, as teamwork, that is going to produce a security or a trust in your husband for you. He's going to see you as competent, capable, trustworthy, and that is going to not only endear you to him, but it's going to raise his amount of respect that he has for you.
When we look at Proverbs 31, it's really an amazing passage. And in a Jewish home, and I think it should be in all homes of faith, it's read every Friday night. And in one sense, Shabbat is Mother's Day within Judaism. where the man will rise and read Proverbs 31 to praise her publicly, especially before the children. And when you look at that passage, you find that the women are all multitasking. Now, men, we tend to, and this is a stereotype, but oftentimes stereotypes are in fact a reality. Men do better focusing on one or two things. I know, I'm speaking for myself, where I know that you can concentrate on multiple things. And the woman in Proverbs 31, she's doing so much. Her focus is her family. Her focus is lifting up her husband, as you have said, that the wife godliness, her activity propels him to be respected where he sits at the
gates,
at the gate of the city where the elders sit. And all of that is an outcome of the godly woman. And so women are doing so many things in business, buying, selling, importing, exporting, all sorts of things. But here's the key. She's doing it for the well-being of her family. And the husband sees the labor, and that, as we've said many times, it's endearing, it draws, it builds that relationship. And that's what this whole purpose is about, building a stronger relationship within the marital covenant.
Mm-hmm. And I think finally, we as women a lot of times, unfortunately, are seeking approval and appreciation and admiration from other people. And if we would do what God has us to do, we would gain that from the proper person who is our husband. And in doing so, not only does he rise up and call her blessed, he's also being raised up in his position as well. So it's really a team effort, and if we each do our part, we're going to draw closer together, and we're going to have a much more successful home.
Amen.
Right? Amen. So thanks for joining us again, and we look forward to next time. Thank you.
Shalom.